and why we typically are not. And I remember it making sense all of a sudden, why I wasn't happy and what I needed to attain happiness, and which was a lot of simplicity and living for others, and really what was at the core of what I had been desiring for a while. But the shaman there, or guru, whatever, was like, yeah, the maker of this was supposed to be here, but his daughter was born this week. They named her Viva. And I thought, I'm going to name my daughter Viva to remember, to never ever forget what I'm feeling tonight, because this is like my first glimpse of hope in so long, seeing this film and the message in this film.
And
so
Viva live life.
Viva means live. And I so often didn't want to live. So it was also a reminder to live, right? Because I didn't want to live for so long, and then I almost missed out on things like this, you know?
Right.
And so a flash forward to when I get hired from Bellator, have money to move to LA. I didn't know anyone in LA, and a bad date took me to meet Tom Shadyac because he needed to go speak to him about something. This is one of the worst dates ever.
Okay.
But he took me, I can't stress it enough, but he took me to Tom's house, and I had seen Tom speak at an Invisible Children. I went to DC to petition at the White House to have Joseph Kony arrested, who was the guy who was kidnapping all these children. So this is so full circle, because I went not knowing anyone, not having any money, to petition, hoping that these children that I didn't even know would be rescued, and hoping to also find connection, because I was hoping I would meet people that were like-minded. I didn't meet anybody, but I saw Tom speak, and I remember just feeling like, whew, that man has something that I want. I'd never seen what I saw in him before. And then years later, this guy takes me to his house, and I'm like,
so after
holy
this date,
shit.
The bad date guy takes you to Tom's house, right?
Yeah. Okay. And I'm like, Tom, I heard you speak like a couple years ago at the White House. And he was like, oh, Tom, he's just like, yeah, like put it here, and I'm like, no, but you don't understand. You've changed my life. And then, he, the thing that drew him to me, and we said it in his episode, is that I kept taking out a notepad and writing down things he was saying. And he was like, you're a seeker. You wouldn't be writing down things I was saying. You have a desire to learn and to grow. And it's stronger than I've seen in most people. And so he was drawn to me in that way. We were both going through breakups, and so we were drawn to each other. Well, this was in October. We end up spending Thanksgiving together. We go to Courtney Cox's, and we had spent all day serving the homeless. And I just thought on both sides, like, man, both of these, the homeless and then these rich celebrities, everybody just wants to be happy. You can see it in their eyes. And then we spend Christmas and New Year's together. And on New Year's, we're on the Malibu beach. There's a bonfire. There's all these people that I admire from film around. And this little girl starts pulling on my pants, like these Thailand pants that come down very easily. And she starts pulling on them. And this woman says, Viva, don't do that. You're going to pull her pants down. And I was like, and I just remember right before this, I remember thinking, I am so glad I lived to this day. Like, I feel so good. Everybody's sober and they're talking about things that matter. And these are people that I want to be like, and I'm excited for life. Like, I felt genuinely excited for life. And then this little girl's pulling on my pants, interrupting that thought. And the woman calls her Viva. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to name my daughter Viva. And I was just feeling what I felt the last time I heard that name. It was while I was watching this documentary called Happy. And she's like, yeah, that's my film. And so up until this point, I didn't even know that Tom Shadyac had produced the film.
Wow.
So it was like so many full circles there. So
it was just like,
I was like, no doubt about it. I'm naming my daughter Viva. And
well, there's no doubt about the message anyway.
The message there to live. And then, so now my daughter's name is Jaya because her dad didn't like the name Viva. But in the last year during plant medicine ceremonies, I keep seeing Viva. I'm 34 and I'm very tired and I don't want more kids, but Viva keeps showing up in my ceremonies and even in my dreams and saying, I'm coming whether you like it or not. You have the soul agreement with me. You already know me. Like, you've already named me. You already knew that I had this plan. Like, you may have thought that it was going to be Jaya, but I am still this soul that you're supposed to bring in, and you're meant to be my mother because I have a very high calling on my life, and you being my mother is going to help activate that. And so she keeps saying, like, I'm coming, right? Like, sorry, like, and I keep saying, like, I'm tired. Can you reroute?
Give me a minute. Reroute.
So that's interesting. And it's also interesting because Jaya, my daughter, the other day, she was like, when is my sister coming? I miss her. And I was like, who are you talking about?
What?
Like, are you having dreams?
Yeah.
But so Viva is still a theme, which is really weird.
Very interesting. So, okay. So here we are. We've gone through most of your life. And then I'd say the last third or less really, is you having children and getting into your mother archetype. And so these two babies, Soul Marie Cook and Jaya
Maria, same as me. Yeah.
I wanted to say Marie, but I knew it wasn't right. How did you, after all the traumas and hardships you went through as a young child, and knowing that other children, are out there because of the work you did in Uganda and with Invisible Children, and knowing you wanted to adopt, and all these things that laid this idea for you along your lifetime of it being really difficult for kids to just make it out alive of childhood even. How did you decide to have children? How did that
It was kind of decided for me. I didn't plan it. I would have wanted to stay with Bellator to this day and pursue film, but I didn't. And a lot of my friends wanted me to have an abortion when I got pregnant with Soul. I didn't plan it. I was already not wanting to be in the relationship that I was in. I already knew that it wasn't healthy. But when I got pregnant with him, I could feel his soul in me. Like I could feel that this was like a being that like had a calling. And when my friends wanted me to abort him, I just knew that it wasn't for me. And I knew that my life was about to drastically change. And I was terrified because I was never modeled the mother that I wanted to be. So I didn't even know if it was possible. I was terrified of becoming a single mother because I feel like the stress of being a single mother is partly what made my mother who she was towards me. I was terrified because I knew that the man, we weren't in a good place, and we were not wanting to be together at the time. So I was terrified, and it was a very traumatic pregnancy, but I knew that I was supposed to go through with it. And we were breaking up regularly. We broke up the day we took him home from the hospital. And about 3 months later, I met Natasha Wicks, who was a UFC ring girl, who also just had a son. And I was telling her my situation, and she was like, you got to do plant medicine. It'll change your life. It'll raise your consciousness. It could even save your relationship with your son's dad. We weren't even together at the time. And she told me about how her husband and her had almost broken up because he wouldn't stop drinking, and how when he did a ceremony, he never drank again because he saw who he became when he drank from her perspective. And I thought, we got to get there. We got to take that. Like, that's the only way this kid's going to have a good life, is if we get this fixed, because I was terrified of being a single mother. And I knew that he had some unhealthy things, and I wanted us both to be healed. I also, once I had him, had a lot of triggers come up around motherhood. A lot of things I thought I forgave my mom for came up, and I was mad at my mom all of a sudden because I was looking at my son thinking I could never do those things to you, and I could never say those things to you. And I get really mad, and I'm not my best self sometimes. And even then I get mad because I think I wasn't taught. And it's not like a victim mentality as much as it is as like, I need to heal this. Like I need to get rid of this trigger. And that's something I'm still actively working on. I was wanting to do ceremony last month around it, but didn't feel called after all. But so that's how I found plant medicine ceremony, is wanting to try to save that relationship so that I wouldn't be a single mother, because that was a big fear of mine. It didn't save the relationship. It did for a week.
It sounds like what it did though is put you on the journey that you're on now with plant medicine,
which was the only way I was able to leave the relationship.
Right. So, and you've been really open about how you're exploring plant medicines, and you've been doing that now for a few years. And like you're saying, you've had tons of personal transformations through using plant medicines, and it's been like a critical tool for your own growth. So maybe you can get into this is one of the questions that people ask the most for you when I ask them, like they really wanted to know your journey into plant medicine. So you kind of explained how you got there. But
yeah, it really wasn't for me in the beginning, which is interesting because my first ceremony, I didn't have an experience because I was there for him.
Oh, okay.
He had one, didn't change anything, but yeah, I didn't even have one because I wasn't there for me. I was trying to save him.
Your first time doing ayahuasca, you didn't have anything come up for you.
No.
But your significant other did, and it helped for momentary and then faded?
For a few weeks, and that's how I got pregnant with my daughter, is there was that glimpse of hope. And even then it wasn't intentional, but it at least made the sex happen, you know?
And then how did you decide to go back?
So I didn't for a while because I was pregnant, but I knew because I had done so much research in order to do it that first time. I had heard so many success stories about healing and about anxiety and depression. And my anxiety and depression was really bad. And I just wanted to be the best mother that I could be by healing my childhood trauma and my wounds. And not to say that you can't use books and therapy, But what I was seeing in plant medicine and other people's life was like years of therapy in one night. And there was something that just, I felt really called to it. I felt like Mother Ayahuasca was my mother. And I felt like Grandfather Huachuma was my grandfather, like imparting wisdom to me. And even though I didn't have an experience that first time, there was something that made me feel like this is going to be a big part of my life and a big part of my healing. And so as soon as I had Jaya, I started getting ready for for the next available ceremony. And through Aubrey Marcus, I found somebody in Austin who has become a huge healing tool in my life as well. But the medicine has changed my life more than, I mean, not more than my relationship with you and Tom. It's not more, it's just different because it changes my brain. It's like muscle memory. Like you and Tom can tell me something over and over and over till you're blue in the face. But when I experience it in a journey, and it's not like, it's still not a snap of the fingers, but it's like muscle memory. And then it's like, it works together with what you and Tom are putting in my life. You know what I mean?
So for someone listening who wants to just kind of know because we're talking about ayahuasca and wachuma in this specific circumstance, but you also use psilocybin mushrooms. So tell me what you feel like those do for a person, if you can define something like that. If you can define, let's start with ayahuasca for you, since that's where you have a lot of experience. How would you describe the way or the method that ayahuasca, this medicine, comes into people's bodies and transforms them?
So you always have an intention, and my intention for years was always around my relationship. And then finally, when it ended, mostly because of ayahuasca. Now this year I've been able to focus on myself and who I actually want to be, and not so much dealing with the trauma that's being pulled out in the relationship. But you always go in with an intention. You spend a lot of time in meditation and in dietary preparation as a way of holding it sacred and preparing your body. And then you go in, you drink the tea. And I always have a lot of fear at first and anxiety because that's what it wants to work on with me. It's almost like I'm purging that because I have that. And then I go through this weird emotion. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, the medicine's already been kicked in. And I'm already working on this fear and anxiety that I was feeling that I thought was about drinking this cup. But I mean, since taking it, I've had like 17 ceremonies now. I feel like it's unlocked an area in my brain that was not previously unlocked. Like it's like this area of logic and this area of worthiness. And it also, so I'm trying to think of an example, like there are messages that she gave me that I had in my life over and over and over and over and over again that I could not see for myself. Like I was with a man who was calling me awful names and who once said, "You're an idiot because you stay with someone who's calling you an idiot." Things like that. And it just wouldn't faze me. And then I went to ceremony one time and the medicine had told me at my previous ceremony, you need to come back here November 23rd with your partner because the healing I want to have to do on you needs to take place in the same space as the healing I'm going to do on him. So I had my hopes up thinking like almost everything that Aya has told me has come true. So I had my hopes up, the partner wouldn't come. And so I'm there and I'm crying and I'm so sad. And I go up to the shaman for healing and his wife is next to him doing a healing on another girl. And purging comes in different ways. Some people throw up. I never have. I often cry. This girl was laughing as her purging for healing. But in my journey, that's a bride and groom. And she's at her wedding altar laughing with joy because she's so happy to get married. And I'm weeping. And I'm just saying, I am so tired of crying. I've cried for years and I've done all the damn work. I have tried everything in this relationship. I've healed so much. I've done so much self-work. When is it my turn to laugh? I don't remember laughing like that, girl. I don't remember the last time I did that. Like, when is it going to be my turn to laugh? And I was mad at Mother Ayahuasca. I was like, why did you tell me he was going to be here and that you were going to heal us? Like, why did you tell me that was going to happen? And she said, I needed you to see that he does not show up for you. He doesn't show up for you in life. He doesn't show up for you in the relationship. He didn't show up for you tonight. I needed you to feel that on the medicine because it's the only way you're really going to it's the muscle memory. Yeah. So it's different. It's like all those things could happen not on the medicine. And it's like, it wasn't phasing me, but when it happened on the medicine, it was so full force that I was like, oh my God, it's not my partner. He's not my partner. And I'm forcing it. And that's why it's not working for anyone. And so that's like kind of an example of how it's different on the medicine versus, a message that's right in front of your face every day and you're not seeing it.
Yeah, the way I relate to that is through my dreams, which I have very extremely vivid dreams, which a lot of times I can't tell the difference between real waking life
Yeah.
and my dream life. So I have experiences in a sense similar to what you're saying, where I go through a situation. And as an example, just of how vivid the dreams are, in every relationship I've ever had, I've dreamt numerous times that my partner cheated on me or I cheated on my partner. Almost always it was me cheating on my partner. I think only once it was them cheating on me, but I would cheat on my partner and I would go through all the courting, the of course the sexual acts, then the shame of me doing something, hurtful to a partner, and then them finding out one way or another, and then my mourning the loss of that partner because of the thing I did. And so like having that experience as if it's reality made me not want to do that in real life,
Yeah.
So that's how I'm relating it when you talk about ayahuasca. I'm thinking that in a sense, and I've never done the medicine myself, but
well, the difference to me is like in your dream, because I've had a dream that even with someone that I'm dating now, who I think is so perfect, I still have these dreams. I've had them with every partner that I see them cheat on me right in front of me. And it's this feeling of betrayal of like, you're not who I thought you were. And I always think that dream means I'm in some way cheating myself, or I still need to heal that betrayal of my father was not who he told me he was. And so the difference I think with Aya and with dreams is that like, it's literal with Aya. It's not, you're not looking for the meaning in the dream. Right. And Aya is like a double-edged sword. This is the message. Don't come back here till you deal with it. Yeah, don't come back here till you do this.
Speaks a direct message. Whereas that you dreams, can't misconstrue.
Yeah. And I've had multiple reoccurring dreams. I've had this dream when I was 3 or 4 that someone was trying to kidnap me, and I tried to call my dad on a payphone and he wouldn't answer the phone, but I could see that he was doing drugs on a floor. I had seen him many times covered in his vomit. So in this dream, I saw him not answering the phone next to him, covered in vomit, and thinking, now I'm going to be kidnapped because my dad's not going to keep me safe. And growing up with every single partner I've had, I've had dreams where someone was trying to rape me and I was calling them and they wouldn't answer the phone, or they were in the room and they wouldn't lock the door. And so there's this fear maybe that once I really need someone to be there for me, that they're not going to be there, or I'm still uncovering it. But I had that dream 2 nights ago. Been having it for 30 years. And I feel like we just have that dream until it's completely healed. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely something to talk to Eric Gotzi about.
I know.
Tell him you need to do a dream episode.
Answer your phone.
So what are your maybe best and worst experiences, or ones that have been most instrumental in your healing on any plant medicines? It doesn't have to be ayahuasca.
Yeah, there's no question, best and worst. They instantly pop out to me. So the worst was the night that I don't know, some people don't believe in past lives, but I went back to a past life and I was a child sex slave, and a boy one. And it was the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. And I didn't do plant medicine for 6 months after, which doesn't sound that long, but I mean, I couldn't be alone after that in a room by myself for probably a week. I couldn't go to the grocery store. I couldn't be around people. And I don't like sharing that story in a way that like scares people away from the medicine, because in 18 ceremonies, that's the only dark one. But I still had a shaman there guiding me. I still had a shaman there helping me. And I still somehow found the light in it, because I have always been hypersensitive to sex trafficking stories, and like I've always had it on my mind so much, like almost daily for years. And I remember writing in my journal when I was 14, because I've kept all my journals. When I was 14, I wrote in my journal, "You have air in your lungs, a creative brain, and you are not a sex slave. So why are you not happy?" What a weird thing for a 14-year-old girl to write. And then I had statistics of sex trafficking on my fridge. And it's like, who does that? So I've always had all these like sex trafficking, like been pulled towards like.
Yeah, it's been in your mind for some reason or another.
And then I have that ceremony. And afterwards, I just thought, I've always wanted to do something involving putting it to an end, or helping victims. But I just thought, I can't, like, it's too scary and I'll be too depressed. And then after that ceremony, I thought, so what? I'm going to leave it to people who don't think about it all the time, who aren't as passionate. And I also it made me really focused on doing meditations, sending love and light to all the victims, and sending love and light to all the, quote unquote, bad characters.
Predators.
The predators. And so that's where I that's what I turned that message into. But it was very, very hard. I will say though, that was the only ceremony I've ever done where I was not mentally or spiritually prepared. I should not have been at that ceremony. My partner was screaming at me every single day that week, awful, awful things. It made it to where I didn't want to meditate and prepare. I didn't want to journal. I did the diet, but half-hearted, and I wasn't in my right mindset, but I still went because I'd already signed up and I had a friend going. But I knew that I wasn't in my right mind, and I used my partner verbally abusing me as an excuse. And then I went with all that darkness, and it was a dark ceremony. So that was the darkest, but I wouldn't keep it from letting me do more because the other ones were so transformative. My best, besides...
Before we move on to the best,
Mm-hmm.
when you're in a dark ceremony, is there any ability to manipulate what's happening?
No, it was the worst night of my life. I kept going to the bathroom and putting water in my face to try to get the medicine to wear off, and just thinking, thank God for water. This boy never had water. This boy never got to wash his face. Like, I mean, my body was in pain. Like, I'd been used by these men, and men kept coming in, and it was, I mean, I had no way of stopping the medicine. I had no way of, but I don't know, because other nights in journeys, I've gone into a room where I've seen my birth dad crying, and I've told the medicine, I'm not ready to go here. I'm not ready to be here tonight. And she closed the door and we went another way. So,
and did you have a conversation with Aya in this journey?
No, no, I think that's the other thing. I was not in a place where I could have a conversation with Aya. I was in such a dark place that all I was saying over and over was, make it stop, make it stop, make it stop. But it wasn't even to Aya. It was me being that boy and him saying, make it stop, make it stop, make it stop.
Right.
I mean, it was, even knowing that I may go through that again, I'm still willing to do the medicine because of who it's turned me into, who it's made me, help me become. Because I've also transformed into my children and felt their feelings, and them tell me what they really need to become who they're meant to become. And when you feel someone else's feelings, it really raises your empathy, but it also helps you be able to be who they need you to be in their life, you know, and how to love them in the way they need. And that's the best thing I could do as a mother. So it's changed my mothering and my parenthood, being able to hear your kids' thoughts and feel their feelings. And then I'd say though that one of the best is just in the last couple months. It was Huachuma and mushrooms and together. And there's this river on the land, and it had just rained. And you know, when it rains in the shallow parts of a river, it looks kind of gross. I mean, also it was on mushrooms. So, but like there was like algae and like moss, and it just looked like not water you would want to swim in. But for some reason, that was the water I went and got in. And I'm just standing in it, and I'm just looking at the disgust and the filth of the water. And I was just thinking, like, this is my junk. This is my filth. And the medicine, but there's this log to my left. And on the other side of the log, the water gets really deep and really wide. And the sun's shining over there, because where I'm at, it's like a deer forest. And it's like, there's no sun because the trees are blocking it. These like weeping willows.
Like a bog.
Yeah. And over there is like the sun's shining and the birds are chirping and the butterflies are ecstatic. And I look over there and I'm like, don't know why I didn't choose that, but I'm in this filth, and I'm like, this is my gunk. And
you have to sit in this.
And I am looking at it, and the plant, the grandfather Hochuma, the mushrooms, whatever, my higher consciousness, because what it really is, says, this is what you think you are. This is what you think you have. This is only 23% of you, but you think it's all of you. And because you think it's all of you, this is all you've ever given to anyone you've ever loved. You thought you were giving 100%, but you were only giving 23%, because everyone you've ever given yourself to has spit in it, has pissed in it, has thrown their gunk in it, and it looks like this shit water. And you don't want to swim in this. You don't want to drink this, but you think it's all you have. And you kind of think that if you love me, this is what you got to be in with me. You're going to have to understand me.
Take me with all this shit.
Yeah. And the medicine was like, this is just 23%. There's a 77% on the other side of that log. And you're about to remove that log because you're about to, you're about to find the partner that doesn't trigger all your childhood wounds, but instead sees this gunk, sees it, knows that it's there, loves you for it, loves where you come from. But because you're giving him that 77% that's never been touched, he gets to enjoy 100% of you. And it's going to be one of the most freeing things and one of the most healing experiences, because you're not only giving 100%, but you're finally able to remove the log that you've had up your entire life because you were scared of every person spitting in your water and you're, pissing in the water, whatever. But there's finally going to be this person that doesn't have all these triggers and that doesn't abuse you in some way. And you're going to experience what's on the other side of that river that you, for some reason, didn't venture over to today, And so while I'm experiencing this and I'm crying because I'm thinking, and then Jaya and Soul are going to get to experience it and thinking all these things and generational curses are being broken. While I'm like crying about this and thanking, this higher being for the 77% still existing, and thanking myself for putting the log up too, experiencing all these things, all these women like get into the water and they start putting the water on them. And I was like,
the shit water.
Yeah. And I was about to say like, stop, parasites, don't drink the water. But they were laughing and putting the water on their hearts and saying cleanse. And I started to cry even harder because I was like, oh my God, like all of my heartbreak and all of my gunk, like letting other women know about it, it heals them. Like they're cleansing through my pain. And so that was, I don't know if it's the best because it was the most recent, but it's the best because it was, to me at this moment, it was just so hopeful.
Yeah.
And also for my children, because I was seeing that I'm healing things so that my children aren't going to have to heal them. And I saw their birth dad. I saw their dad, my ex-partner, like on the other side of the river on a land by himself, happy, and which is all I want for him. But I just saw him and thought like I had closure in that way, that
it was going to be okay there.
Yeah. And that like he was going to have all he needed, all his happiness and all of his peace and all of his simplicity. And there really was a real man over there. He was watching me in this journey. There was a man in this little green trailer on the side of the river, just watching me cry in the water. And he was drinking tea. And then once I realized he was there, but in my journey, he was my ex-partner. And I was like, oh, good, you're happy and you're healed. And I was looking at him and he like waved, but I was still stared crying. And so he went inside and closed the blinds.
Wow. Like, he must see some real
peace to you. Peace to you.
Holy hippie Tuesdays going on here. Okay. That's amazing. So, okay. We like to use the word intuitive on this podcast so as not to scare anyone off, but I want you to explore with us the abilities that you have had really since you were a young child that you started noticing and then have honed in on more in the later years of your life here.
Yeah. So
tell me about that.
So I believe that we're all intuitive and that we either discredit it or we're discredited by others, by them saying it's your imagination or by us being scared of it. And so we turn it off. And so
just let's give it your definition of intuition.
Well, it's what most people would consider psychic. It's being able to have an inner knowing of the spiritual realm, I guess. And like trusting your gut instinct can be intuition, right? But like to me, intuition it's a less scary word of psychic, right? I don't know.
The way I mean, I'm going to just add my description in here too and see if it resonates with you. But the way that feels right for me is that intuition is the ability to use tools, whatever those are. And for me, it's learning how people speak and the way that they use certain words, the words they choose to use can give me a knowing into the type of person they are. Are they avoidant? Are they someone who is a forward, someone who comes toward?
Yeah, I agree.
Micro expressions that they're using that tell me a little bit about what they're feeling when they're saying a sentence that may not have anything to do with what's actually going on inside of them. And then there's a whole trail of those things that you can get really good at reading when you're just seeing a person sitting in front of you, and it becomes so ingrained that it becomes a knowing without having to even think consciously about what you're reading on a person. You don't even have to really.
Yeah, I do think that's intuition. I think the other word too, like clairvoyant. So for me, I can see people as their animal allies. I can see their chakras, almost always the bottom three, but sometimes all of them. And then I can see the auras and what's in their aura space. I can see if their aura is really close to their body or if it's really far out. I can sometimes see past trauma. That's a repeated pattern. And I can see.
In this case, you're visually seeing these things.
Yes. And I've luckily learned to turn them on and off.
Okay.
But I can, because before I didn't know how to turn them off.
And how long have you been able to see this stuff?
Only like a year and a half, actually. But it's been actually when I was a kid, I would see things like that. And the difference, I think, is I was not discredited, and I didn't discredit myself. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't scared of it. And my mom, because I would say things and she'd be like, holy heck, how did she know that? How did she see that? I didn't feel discredited. I think that the thing is when I got into that church, it became a thought of that's evil.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you don't want to mess with. But I didn't necessarily turn it off as much as I did have fear of it.
Yeah.
And
remember any instances when you were young that came up before you turned
I
it
saw
off?
I saw my mom's grandmother. I talked about this in the Paul Selig interview. I saw her grandmother. This is the one that sticks out the most for me because it was as clear as day. I saw her in the bathroom with me, telling me to tell my mom that she loved her and that she wishes she could make flour tortillas for her. And I had never met this woman. And my mom, this is back before cordless phones, was in the kitchen on the wire phone, hooked up to the wall.
Landline.
Heard me talking to someone and said, "Who are you talking to?" And I said, "Your grandma." She had just passed away. I didn't even know that. I was only like 2 or 3. I was like Jaya's age. And I said, "Your grandma, she said that she loves you very much and she wishes she was here to teach you how to make flour tortillas." And my mom, I guess, since she had just passed away, had just been feeling like, because she was such a kind of an emotionally hard woman, because she had to be, because she was tough because of the stuff she went through. My mom never really experienced love from her. And she also was like, I never got her flour tortilla recipe. It's lost with her. And I didn't know those things. Like maybe she had said them in front of me, but like I was only, so young, and I saw her in front of me. And so like that happened. And then about a year and a half ago, it was after I started, I'd been doing medicine for a couple of years, plant medicine. And so I started to open up that part of my brain again too. Started to believe in that stuff more. And I started to see, so one of the first signs of being clairvoyant, one of the most obvious signs, is that you sometimes see flashing lights when something is trying to communicate with you. And I started to see that and started to think, oh, fuck, am I going crazy? And then found out that was one of those things that like the spiritual realm's trying to connect with you or tell you something. And then I started to see things like people as their animal allies. And I started to feel presences, spiritual presences. And one time my ex-partner had a friend over and he came in and I saw a brown aura around him, which is very low functioning. Brown and gray is like low functioning. It's usually to do with like addiction or depression. I saw a brown aura around him. And I was so used to seeing auras at this time that it didn't faze me. I would see them. If anything, I was trying to learn to not judge people for what I saw, because I was trying to remember this is not their intention. This is not what they want you to see.
Right.
Like if you're going to have this gift, you have to separate the two. And especially like with coworkers, and I saw him with his brown aura. I saw him come and sit on the couch. And then I saw a woman sit down next to him. And I thought, I knew it wasn't a real woman. I knew that it was a spirit, because there's just a different energy. There's a different presence, a feeling. I don't know how to explain it. She sat there and I thought, this is why I don't like having visitors, because I don't like the energy that sometimes people can bring in the home. And I just thought like, I don't like this. And she looked at me and the message was very clear. Don't worry. I'm not here to do harm to anybody. I go where he goes. I'm going to leave when he leaves. I'm just here to be with him. And she didn't have any wrong intention. Like there was no fearful intentions. Like I didn't feel any ickiness, just the thought of like, there's an entity in my house.
Yeah.
And
I know how to feel about that. Exactly.
And also just that like, I'm seeing this, they're not. Like I feel like a kook.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was communicating with this woman, and there was a sad feeling. There was a really sad feeling, and they left. I didn't necessarily not sleep well, but it is a weird thing to see, and this isn't too rare for me. But I also don't feel like I have many people that I can talk to about this.
Right.
And so I talked to my shaman, and he was like, you need to get some training. You need to be able to be around other people who are seeing the same stuff and that you can express this with. So I signed up for Boulder Psychic Institute. The crazier thing though is I told my ex-partner that I was going to sign up for Boulder Psychic Institute, that I was seeing these things. I was so scared to tell him because I already felt like
judged by him and such
already so much. Yeah. And so I told him like, these are some of the things I'm seeing. This is what I see in the bathroom. This is what I feel in our bedroom. And none of it was really resonating with him. But when I told him about that woman, he was like as white as a ghost and was like, oh, wow, his mom had just died and they didn't have a very good, like they didn't really have a good ending or like a good relationship. And so it made sense that she was like still trying to be with him and like there was unfinished business there, you know, and like she wanted to make sure he was okay. I don't know. But I don't even know that guy's name. Like I don't even think I was introduced to him. But so the fact that like he was like, wow, and I explained what she looked like and everything, and he validated that, made it to where he at least kind of supported me in that school. But yeah, things like that happen. Just things where I see entities or I see someone as their animal ally. I see their chakras to know what kind of mental state they're in at that moment. And it's something I'm thankful for, because I have been doing those soul guide sessions, I guess, or soul readings. I'm not sure what to call them yet.
Yeah, you're doing readings now for people.
And so far, everyone has cried and experienced a lot of healing. So I'm thankful for the gift, but it also makes me feel it even makes it harder to relate to people, because I feel even weirder. And I don't know if people believe me when I say what I see. And when someone says they don't see anything, it makes me feel like strange to them, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think anything that we can't see and put our hands on ourselves and really get a grasp of mentally ourselves becomes something that's fearful. And then we name it things like magic or woo-woo, and I think psychic is one of those words too, where we put that, we classify
or dark and evil is what I fear.
Yeah, we classify those things, magic, woo-woo-ness.
But I see it as like a tool that can even draw us closer to God if we're using it the right way, because it can be used to heal and to raise to our higher self.
Right. And I think that's the thing, is what's the intention with it and what are you doing with it? But at the same time, I think people just generally, things that we don't know clearly for ourselves become scary and fearful, and they put anyone who considers themselves able to do magic or whatever, we put them in that box too, because that's our instinctual nature to anything we don't know about and we're not sure about, we'd be fearful of it first in case it can kill us, essentially. Our ego doesn't want to be killed.
Yeah, that's a struggle with it. The other struggle is just doubt, like, am I just imagining all this stuff? And then when I do a session with someone and I tell them everything and they're like, oh man, like that, all of that, it all, lines up perfectly for them, then I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I should be doing this. But there was a friend that you had connected me to do a session, and I instantly, because I can usually look at someone's picture, right when I saw it, I was like, she's a viper, she's a snake. But then I saw a past life that didn't correlate with the paperwork that I had her fill out. And I also just thought, like, it's weird. The snake was weird to me. I thought, like, are you sure? But I kept seeing her, every single picture of her, she was a snake. But I was just doubting myself and doubting that, like, this vision I had was even helpful to her. And so I was laying in bed and I was thinking, like, just call it off. Cancel the appointment. You don't really need to be doing this. Like, what's the point? There's so much, help people through the podcast. You don't really need to be doing this. And mostly because I doubted the snake and the vision. And I had just ordered Instacart groceries the night before, and they were due to arrive, right at when I was getting up. And so there was a knock on the door. I get up while I'm thinking about this. I get up, I go to the door, and I live in a busy neighborhood next to an elementary school. I open the door and the grocery lady's like super spooked. And she's like, looks down, and I look down, and there's a snake that's sitting at my doorstep. And I was just like doubting the whole snake scenario, and she was like, there's a snake. And she's like walking backwards, there's a snake, just saying it over and over. And I was like, this is so weird. And then, like, the day before that girl's session, someone sent me a card with a snake that had pink flowers all over it, which is like not really a card you would normally. No. So there are like little confirmations that I am supposed to be, and to like embrace it. But I definitely get my doubts, and I definitely get my insecurities around it, because just another thing that I feel makes me weird,
Right. And so you see spirit animals on people just walking around, and you just, this guy's an owl, and this guy's a frog, and this guy's
now I've pretty much learned to turn it on and off, to where if I want that to be on, I walk myself through a certain channeling meditation, and then I'm seeing it on almost everybody. I've kind of fine-tuned it to where if I don't do that, I'm not seeing it, unless it's like meant to be seen.
Okay.
Like, and if I'm ever exhausted, or if I've had, which I haven't been drunk in like 10 years, but if I'm ever exhausted, or if I've had like some alcohol, I typically, things are really foggy. Like, I can see something, but it's not clear. Fuzzy. Yeah.
That is so interesting.
I'm also still learning the benefit of it. Like, okay, I can see these things. Yeah. What's the benefit?
Yeah.
What's the benefit to telling this person?
Right.
Like, I need to figure out what each animal represents, and doing these sessions has helped because then I'm studying that animal. Wow, that makes so much sense how this can be beneficial.
Yeah,
but when you first see someone as a snake, you're like,
that doesn't sound like someone wants to know. Yeah.
No, yeah. I saw someone as a hyena and I'm like,
I want all the people who hate cats to be cats.
oh, that's funny.
So you've told me I'm a Sphinx cat, which obviously resonates with me because everyone knows I'm a crazy cat lady, but also because...
But it's such a weird looking Sphinx cat. It's like very Egyptian and like just perfect posture and like...
Which resonates with me even more because of my obsession with Egypt. And so there's many things that I think and then I looked up cat, and the first thing it talks about is it being a bridge, and I consider myself a bridge. So It's so interesting the way that we can use things like when you have a reading, for instance, and you tell someone their spirit animal, you talk about, some past lives that you might have been able to witness pieces of, or any other things that come up for you because of however you're reading them. Whether or not anyone else can see it, I don't think matters, because the fact of the matter is, if it puts together pieces for a person's subconscious, whoever you're sitting in front of, and it's able to help them heal something, or it's able to help them tap into a part of them that they weren't recognizing clearly, that now them being able to recognize clearly lets them put some pieces of their puzzle together, that's a benefit. Like, I'm for it. I don't understand why we're ever against something that could be helpful to people,
Yeah.
I think it's, again, just that fear. We have this like innate fear of anything we don't know about or we can't do ourselves. So you turn into a Japanese red fox whenever you do plant medicine.
Yeah, I don't know why Japanese, but it's a Japanese red fox.
Yeah, well, it's just a specific type of animal, I guess.
Yeah.
So you feel the little hairs. You've talked about that, I think, on previous episodes. And
really playful. It's a really playful fox. Really sensual and playful, and like can get out of a pickle real easily.
Yeah. Fox usually is, the word cunning comes to mind because that's
cunning
as a fox, right?
Yeah.
And your kiddos turn into little foxes as well for the time being, but you are under the impression that as we grow, we kind of create our own new identities.
Yeah, I think that children represent their parents because that's who they're mimicking. And my daughter, so her dad is a wolf and she was a wolf when we all lived in the same home, and my son was a fox. And now that we've, they've only lived with me, now I see her as a fox. And her personality has changed a lot. But I think that once they get that separation, I don't know if it's like puberty but they really start to define their own identity is probably when they get their own animal. And it's weird because I feel like everywhere I go, not everywhere, but very often, people are like, did you just see that fox? Or like, oh, did you see that dead fox on the road? Or
a lot.
I never see it. Like I was walking, I was hiking, and my friend was like, did you see that fox family? And I was like, how did you see it? And then like my neighbor the other day was like, oh, did you see that? Do you know there's that fox that lives on property? And I was like, what? Like it was the weirdest thing she could have said.
Yeah.
And again, I live in an apartment complex. Like, so it's just
where
weird.
Are these animals coming from? That's so interesting. So have you ever had psychic reading or psychic work on you?
Yeah, only through my shaman and through when I attended Boulder Psychic Institute, I made it to level 4. And in level 3 and level 4, you do readings on each other, readings from them. And then I also got readings done through like the actual mentors at BPI, not just my classmates.
Okay. And did those always resonate with you, or how do you feel the person doing the reading navigates their skill, their abilities?
So my shaman, the lights that I would see at my old apartment, the lights were always in my bathroom, and they scared the crap out of me sometimes because I'd be sleeping and all of a sudden a flashing light would wake me up, and I'm like, Scott, really take that name out. And so I would see the flashing light in my bathroom while sleeping, and I would think, and I would try to wake up my ex-partner and say, do you see that light? And the fact that he was saying he couldn't see something that I was seeing, I just don't know how to explain the feeling that it gave me, but I didn't like it. And like what's going on in my brain, and
what's wrong with me?
What is trying to communicate with me, and is it going to be a good message? And again,
everything we don't know about is scary. It's just immediately we don't give it a chance to be anything else.
So I kept contacting my pastors at the church, and they weren't coming over. And I thought, I'm just going to contact my shaman. And he came over. He's very intuitive, very psychic, very clairvoyant. I've never once been around this man without seeing his aura ever. Like his aura was the first aura I think I ever saw. I see it on Tom Shadyac often, but my shaman always has like a red glow around his hands and then a white aura like all around him, which is very translucent and unbiased. But he came in my house. He was doing his blessings everywhere. And then he walked, and I did not tell him about the lights in the bathroom yet. I didn't tell him any of that. I just told him there's some spiritual activity in my house and I'm the only one seeing it. And so he goes in my bathroom and he walks back out and he like looks around at my house and like, okay, this is where I'm at. And then he walks back into my bathroom and he like steps back out. He looks around and he's like, every time I walk in your bathroom, I forget where I'm at. There's a portal in there. And there's been a portal. There's a portal that's been opened in there. Something happened in that bathroom. And that's where entities are coming in and out of. And so I was like seeing that portal basically. And another thing that I hadn't told him is that there was a big giant outburst fight that was very unhealthy that happened in that bathroom with my partner, and the scariest night of our relationship. And I did not tell my shaman that had happened, but that's definitely since that had happened was when the activity had happened. So that not only confirmed in me, but it comforted me that like we were seeing the same thing. But yeah, so I had that reading on my home, which was something that I was seeing already. And he was able to close that portal. And then the readings at BPI, they were able to tell me kind of like the mental state that I was in and the trauma that I needed to heal, and that I was a repeated pattern. But that's really all we can do. And then we can give you tools. We can tell you what we see, because it's almost like an awakening for you. Like you can't ignore this anymore. And we can give you tools to work on with that. But I've never witnessed a reading or done a reading or had a reading where when the truth is spoken from the intuitive person or the clairvoyant person, where like tears don't come out or like goosebumps aren't given at the time that the truth is spoken, because it's like, how can you, this is someone who didn't know. So when they're saying it, how can you now ignore that this is something that needs to be dealt with or healed, So I'd say that's like one of the most beneficial things is like it's in your face now,
Yeah. And it's interesting that energy lives in these words, and it's just a matter of when they're spoken out loud, we have a reaction.
And you put a name to it for them in a way that it's like, okay, it makes sense. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. If there's a way that this allows people to put the puzzle that our big, that our brains are together, and it allows healing to happen, then let's do it. I'm all for it. I'm glad you're doing the work to hone it, because if apparently it's something that has been asked of you in this lifetime, so here you are doing it. I mean, it's just weird when people don't want people to be creative. They only want people to be creative in the way that they feel comfortable with,
Yeah. It's more like for me how, and someone that I've recently had started dating, it was like he had never heard of this stuff. So it's like when you share something with someone who's never heard of it and they're not judging you, but they're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And like, they're not into plant medicine. They don't want to do it. And here you are, this like hippie sipping,
plant drinking.
Yeah. You're kind of like, what do you think I am? And am I okay with you? Like, yeah, it's kind of just like, I don't know. I don't really know how to word it.
I think it's just a veering off of mainstream. Again, we are tribal beings and we're always searching for feeling safe. And as soon as we're not doing the same thing that all the rest of the tribe is doing, we're suddenly not safe. And that means that the people that come into our lives when we're doing something off the beaten tribal path, we become unsafe to those people in their ego mind, in their mind.
We've also just got to let people be who they are. Because imagine if this was a time when I couldn't share what I see. Imagine how crazy I would feel.
You'd be burned at the stake.
What can I not, like, it's not like I can just stop seeing this stuff. So like, what if I wasn't accepted for this? Yeah. And then it's like, well, I'll just keep seeing this stuff and keep it to myself. Imagine how icky that would be.
Yeah. And then people just call you crazy or burn you at the stake. And I mean, that's what I'm saying. We are only comfortable with people being creative to the degree of which we're comfortable with, and that's not fair because our minds are
just because we don't understand it.
Yeah. To me, it's the same thing again with the dream thing. It's like saying if someone dreams something, they're going to take it so literally that I don't know if we might have to cut this out, but basically my idea is that if I was to dream I murdered somebody, for instance, and then I told the world, I dreamt that I murdered somebody, and they said, well, you're a murderer then. That's what that means. We got to put you in, death row or whatever you do. Yeah. It's the same extreme way that our instinctual mind that's just trying to like keep us safe. And so it's not logical thinks. So when you talk about someone who's doing something that a lot of the population is not doing because they're not using their mind in that type of, or that place of creativity, it's so scary for them. It's such a unknown that they just feel like you got to go be over there because it's, we don't know what to do with that because we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. That's the point anyway.
And maybe one day it's going to be completely normal. And then it's like going to be weird that, you know?
And I actually think it will. I think as we get rid of, I way overuse this term, but things like toxic masculinity that are causing us to close off our creativity, that are not allowing us to have that ability of free-spirited wild woman or wild feminine, let's call it, because men can have that ability too. We don't get to explore these parts of ourselves that could tap into the other parts of our brain, you know, other parts of our spirit for that matter.
Especially now that psychedelics are becoming legal, who knows what's going to happen.
And that concept that monkeys, you know, somebody has who talks about the theory of monkeys getting a hold of mushrooms, magic mushrooms, and eating them, and then it becoming the way that they turned into human consciousness and were able to expand their minds to the place where we are today. That is a really cool idea. Don't have any idea if it's, you know, factual, but just the fact that we can come up with shit like that because our brains have this type of creativity. We can dream the wildest, weirdest things that don't make any damn sense, and we can make a movie that looks like the dream, you know, we had, and make the world go, what the hell were you smoking when you made that movie? Because our brains are capable of so much more than we could ever predict.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm glad you're helping people like we talk about, you know, this podcast is a lot about bridging people who might be thinking mainstream and being very safe and asking them to explore the gray a little bit. I know it feels unsafe, but it's really not. It's just a matter of you getting used to it little by little. So walk on this bridge called the Magic Hour podcast with us. Okay. So I wanted to say that a year ago, we started the show. And if someone would have asked me a year ago if Jade is living the life she wanted, I would have probably answered no. But today, if someone asked me, it would be a completely different answer. Like something like, yes, she's consciously creating her reality and taking ownership of what and how she manifests now. And I feel like that's really what you're doing. How do you feel like you'd answer that question today? How are you? Who are you?
Yeah, a year ago, I was not living the life that I would want to create. But today, I do feel like I am. I obviously want to grow into more of that through this, you know, podcast and through, you know, different goals. But you're saying, how did the transition happen, or how did that change happen, or just who am I?
Yeah, just like, maybe let me just rephrase it so that it'll be clean for John. But a year it seems like such a long time in some regards, but in such a short time, it always feels like it flies by, right? Yeah. And so a year ago, we were starting this podcast. You were in a completely different place in relationship, especially, and even physically, you were living in, you know, you've moved a couple times since then, and mentally, for sure, you were in a different place. And within the year, some really big changes have happened. The podcast was born. You have changed the relationship you were in, and went through 8 months of abstinence.
Oh yeah, keep forgetting about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a really big journey to today now today, I'd say you're completely different than who you were a year ago. And so I just wanted you to maybe speak on that and how you got here.
Yeah, that's crazy when you put it that way, because every year on New Year's Eve, I give that next year a word. And I was scared to do it, but I gave 2019 the word transformation. That was my word for 2019, and everything you just said screams transformation. So, damn, I had a good one for next year. I've already forgotten it.
I'm sure you. Yeah. But, so in the now, right now, here we are. At
thriving. And 2020 is thriving.
Thriving. I like that's a very abundant word.
Yeah, like thriving.
So how do you feel like, and you know, maybe you can talk about what are the big moments that happened in the last just year from when we started this podcast to now, since this is our 1 year anniversary. What has happened, and for you, you know, in your life, and how has that transformed you?
So I think starting off the year with that intention to be transformed, to have my life transformed, was a big thing, because I'm all about manifestation through list. And last November, knowing that I wanted this next year to be a completely different life, I wrote out my dream partner list. I entitled it What I'm Available For. And there was 17 or 18 things. And, you know, my ex-partner is not a bad person. We're just not right for each other. And there's some unhealthy stuff there, but I know he loved me. He just didn't know how to love me how I needed. And when I looked at that list, he only had one of all of those things.
Wow.
And it made me want to be so much more intentional. Like, man, why the hell didn't I have this list before to like, you know, weed it out and like not waste time. And so I said next year, or I knew the relationship was ending, but I knew that next year that I was going to be true to that list. And so I went into the year with that list, and also with the transformation theme. And then also knowing I was going to be celibate, because like in that marriage, unlike in that marriage where I waited a year till I washed that fork, I wanted to feel all the pain from this breakup so that I didn't run into the arms of different lover.
Right. Same story.
And I also didn't want to take any of the patterns and the darkness into my next partnership, because I wanted that partnership to be conscious. And I also wanted to protect my energy while I healed. And so I chose to be celibate. I used to smoke every single day. This is the only way I was surviving. And I chose to give that up. Smoking weed. Mm-hmm. And also to cut out drinking. I mean, I think I maybe drink once in that whole celibacy with you after our South by event. I was tired.
We needed it.
But yeah, I didn't really drink though. And I gave up smoking, and I gave up weed, and I gave up sex. I still would get little crushes, but they knew beforehand that I was celibate. Nothing was going to happen. But yeah, those things were really monumental for me. And I also, as scary as it was, moved into a home with my toddlers on my own, not knowing if I could afford it, but knowing that as stressful as that may be, my mental stress and emotional stress would be different. And it's been that really sums it up. Like, as stressful as sometimes the uncertainty can be financially, or the what ifs about the future, all the what ifs that may have come up, I had to give up. I had to stop going to BPI because I had to cut expenses, and I also didn't have a partner, to help out. So with all of that though, I've never felt more safe and secure. I've never felt more, I have a mood journal that I've done the last couple of years where I draw something and then I label each piece of it 1 through 30 or 1 through 31, however many days are in the month. And then I have a little key grid at the bottom that says different moods based on colors. And I color that day of the month, whatever mood I'm in. And I was looking at the last 2 years of October, and so purple is over the moon, and pink is good day. And then orange is, it's okay. And then from then on out, it's anxious, worried, angry, sad. In the last 2 years, it was either orange or below. There was never pink, never purple. And there was a lot of gray, which is anxious and worried. And there wasn't a single purple, not a single pink in either of those Octobers, because I like to go back and make sure that there's growth. And so I always have my 2 Octobers, next to my present one. And my present one, not to get too attached, because we have highs and lows, and who knows what next month may look like. Mm-hmm. But in this October, we're at the end of the month, and mm-hmm. I've had purple on every single day. So that just shows how much making
proactive,
making scary changes,
seek the pain in a
feel
sense.
really, really stuck. And I know that if I didn't have that message from Aya, maybe from
Mm-hmm.
Mother Ayahuasca, maybe it would have taken longer. And I know that there's times that I had told you, this is my situation and this is how I'm feeling, and you would say like, okay, let's try to get together a game plan for how we can get out of this situation. Mm-hmm. But it never felt attainable for me. And then in that ceremony, I just knew it doesn't matter. You have to do it. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember last year, because I like to write like few letters to my future self. And last year on a holiday, I read my previous one, and then I wrote one for this year. And I wrote, you have been happy every year on this holiday for the past 4 years. Do not do this again. Like, next year, I want you to write something happy for the first time in years. Mm-hmm. And that was a big wake up call. So just really being aware of what I'm feeling, because it's so easy to distract ourselves and go through the motions. So just really being aware of all my feelings and being really present with them, and then making scary changes.
Yeah.
Now being aware of my feelings and being present with them isn't as dark and scary.
I think that's it right there. Is you took we call on the podcast 15 seconds of bravery to step into some of that ugly stuff that you've been maybe not wanting to look at for a while, and realized, this sucks and I'm going to have to dredge through it, but I can see that there is another, I can see the other side, and I'm going to drudge through this until I get there, because I know this is the uncomfortable work I have to do.
And now the work that's being done in my growth, because sometimes you think, sometimes like when you're in a relationship like that, you think it's such a good tool for growth. Like you can rid yourself of your ego so much, and you can pull out so much trauma because you're being triggered all the freaking time.
Yeah. Oh shit, that's me. Where's oh shit, it's because
it scared me.
It's right behind the computer. Well, we've been on here for a fucking while.
2 hours.
I wonder how long the other video went. Make sure it's going.
Well, my video has been on for 2 hours and 2 minutes.
Oh, shit. Okay. Sorry.
So I think that it's easy to stay in relationships that aren't good for us when we're obsessed with growth, because we can think like, well, this is a way to rid myself of my ego, and I'm constantly being triggered, because triggers are all the freaking time in unhealthy relationships. And so you're thinking you're dealing with your trauma and you're healing, and it's like, when you're obsessed with growth and with
just knowing the psyche.
Yeah. It almost becomes like this addiction in a way. And it's like, in this year, I honestly feel like I've grown more than I did in those years in that relationship, even though relationships can be such a tool for growth, especially because your partner holds up a mirror to you. But it's like, yes, when you're in a conscious relationship. And I think sometimes we get that confused. Like we do think that relationships are like tools for growth, but it's like, we don't need to be in something like that to you know. And so now being single this year, I feel like I've grown so much, but in a way of dealing with my worthiness and dealing with my mindset of lack, transitioning it into a mindset of abundance. So many amazing ways that I've grown this year through being on my own, and also through dating. Like dating people has also, because worthiness and lack and abundance and all of that goes into dating. So I think that sometimes though we stay in a situation too long because we think we just need to change ourselves, and we just need to, you know.
Yeah. And I think that can be tied to, I understand the self-deprecating nature that you're talking to there, but also I think it can be tied to, or at least I've noticed in myself, to a codependence.
It is
or
codependence.
To, like for me, it's like a codependence and a sex addiction, in a sense, where I don't like to use sex addiction because it sounds so extreme, but just the idea of like getting validation through interaction with
sexual and
in
attention.
that way. Yeah. So I think that
I do feel like my codependency has been healed. And I feel like what we're attracted to, I read a quote today, the soul that we're attracted to reveals the contours of our heart. And it's also like that water seeks its own level. Like whatever you're attracted to reveals what you're needing to heal at that time. And I have noticed this year, I have only been attracted to healthy people and to people that really want to have those conversations that are life-giving and bring us both into more consciousness, you know? So I think I may have gotten rid of that codependency through being so freaking codependent on someone and doing all that medicine and all that work in that relationship. I don't know that now I need to do all of the medicine and all. It's like a different type of growth now, you know?
Yeah. And it's settling, like letting hindsight show you show you what all you learned through that work you did. That's important. It's we call it the sacred pause.
Yeah, which I don't usually do.
Integrate with gratitude. Step 4.
Integrate with gratitude. That's good.
Yeah. So what are some of the practices you use in your daily routine that help you stay at your best in all, what we've talked about here? And we do so much here on the show with magic tricks and giving, muddling through everybody else that we have on the shows, ways that they keep their lives in some sort of healthy state, and they have daily routines that have been really helpful to us. But what have you picked out from there maybe, or what do you do that has always helped you?
Yeah, 2 things that I feel like make all the difference in my life and in the kids' lives is like every morning. And I really want to add one step to this that I've been slacking on, but every morning before I even get out of bed, and the kids know, like they'll come in here and tell me good morning, and then they know that I need 10 minutes to meditate. So they'll go back in their room, they'll play a little bit, they'll go sit on the couch and color, whatever they choose to do. But they know that like in the morning they give me, a little bit of time, and I'm lucky that they're old enough now to do that. But before I even get out of bed, I put on a grounding cord that I attach like to my hips visually, and like I attach it to the center of the planet, and I just let all the stuff that doesn't serve me and all the things that like are in my space, I let it go down that cord, and I keep it on throughout the day, so that if I do feel like I didn't like the way that felt or that interaction wasn't too great, I let it go through that cord. And then this isn't something that most people would feel like they could do, but visualization is so powerful, whether you think you're psychic or not. I visualize each of my chakras, and I visualize myself tuning them into how I want them. So like your root chakra should only be 1 inch. Your second should only be 1 inch. Your third For women, it's 6 inches. For men, it's 8 inches. So I know what those are supposed to look like. So I visualize those the way that they're supposed to look.
And just for anyone listening that, might not be familiar with even how chakras work, there are tons of like YouTube videos that you could just say chakra meditation that could walk you through that type of visualization.
And this makes so much of a difference, because if you're someone who struggles with anxiety, you're ungrounded, and you got root chakra, and putting on that grounding cord makes all the difference, just visualizing it. But something else that I do in that practice is what I tell other people and people that I meet with to use is a pool, like picture themselves in a pool and get all the leaves and all the gunk out, and picture that pool being the temperature that you find comfortable. Ask everyone to get out of the pool and to leave the pool, and just let it be a place that's like relaxation for you. And that's like your way of clearing your head and getting everyone's thoughts out of your head. So for me, I moved on from the pool, and now I picture this meditation room. I don't know where it came from, but maybe it's in my future house, but it's this meditation room where I vacuum out the gunk. I move the toys out. I light my little incense and light a little candle, and then I sit in this like chair, and that's like the way I clear my head and the way I get people's thoughts out of my head. Like if you've ever had some like just something in your mind that you can't clear, or like even a song you like can't fall asleep, then I picture myself in there, and I turn off the stereo and I ask that person to leave the room, and it's like I've cleared my mind. So that's like part of that meditation is like clearing that space, my grounding cord, the chakras. And then I also picture a big golden sun above me. And I put everything in that sun that I want to embody: love, laughter, presence, playfulness. I picture the fox running around. I just put everything in there, money, whatever. And then I pop it and I let it fill up like my whole space. And there's a bunch of stuff that I do in that whole exercise. It's a big 10, sometimes 20-minute thing, but those are the most simplest ones that people could use. The rest is a little bit harder to grasp, but I do that every single morning. And then on our not rush mornings, which I wish it was every morning, me and my kids dance.
Yeah.
And I mean,
love those
even
Instagram videos.
Even when we're not having a good day, sometimes Soul will go, "Oh my God, we forgot to dance." And it's like, we know you want to have a good day or a bad day. You start it with something good that makes you feel good. And so those are two things: movement, dance, because you can't, like, dancing is so powerful. So dance, and then that meditation. And the thing that I want to end to the end of my day is meta meditation, because that'd be so powerful before you go to sleep. Sending someone love, sending yourself love. But that's not something that I've done, but it's something I'm working on. I usually run myself. Yeah. I usually run myself till I fall in bed. So, but that's something I'd like to add on to that.
All right. Well, I want to get into the questions that our Magic Mob sent in, because of course they had a lot for you. So let's kick it off with @Rach Blair on Instagram asks, how do you respond to unexpected triggers in dating?
That's a really good one. So I think my triggers have most of them have to do with worthiness now, because I'm not dating people who would ever raise their voice at me in an abusive way, or that it would ever call me names. So I'm not really being triggered there. I think that it's silly things like just feeling worthy. And the way I respond is through, when something comes up for me, speaking it. So when I let it fester, it drives me nuts. And it also gets so much worse, because then I create a story in my head, and I also feel less worthy, because now I think I'm insecure, and I think that I feel even more unworthy because I'm feeling unworthiness, Whereas when you can find a partner that lets you safely express your insecurities and your vulnerabilities, it is life-changing. So, but yeah, for me, when a trigger comes up, I don't let it fester, but I also make sure I'm emotionally sober, and I make sure to express it in a way that is non-threatening. And I don't know that would have ever been allowed in my past partnership. So it only works in, with
someone who's open to doing
someone that allows that and that makes you feel safe in that space. But this year I have felt that here recently. So I feel really, really safe and comfortable letting what's stirred up in me, letting it come out. And yeah, I think that's the best thing to do, is to express it.
I like that. I'm going to pause because I have to plug this in. I'm not pausing anything, but I'm not asking you anything. So just give me 1 second. Will you clap with me on the count of 3 again, just for the second video that I started? 1, 2, 3.
Because like London Winter said in her episode, like there's going to come a time when you do feel comfortable sharing all that stuff. So like might as well do it now. And if you're too much for him, then
you'll figure
find
that out
now.
Sooner than later. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, is when we feel triggers, I think we often feel like we're too much if we express them. And I've let go of that this year. And if something makes me insecure, and I mean really silly, like if I didn't like that he liked something on Instagram one time, like that's like the worst, I think, for a girl. It sounds
petty, but it's still an emotional, it still triggers something. So go ahead.
Yeah, like, but that's like one of the worst things I feel like us girls want to say is like, hey, I noticed you liked this on Instagram, and that caption, you liking that, it just didn't feel good. Like that feels so weird for us to say that. But when you feel safe enough, and when you let it out and it's accepted, and you see how they react to you, but if you're feeling it, then it's valid. And
too, I think because you've done a lot of the self-work to know when your thoughts are true, to like you're being logical. You know what I mean? Instead of irrationally emotional. And that's a huge, hard thing to reach. But I think because now you're in a state where you're pretty confident in the way that you're able to actually look at the truth of something that you get triggered with, you feel confident in bringing it up.
Yeah. And also following up with, look, I have been cheated on by every partner, and I don't want to make you pay for their mistakes. But that's also why I'm letting you know that this is an insecurity of mine and something that I'm working on. But I just wanted to let you know that that's in my space right now. Yeah. I feel like we have to share our triggers, because otherwise how are they going to know how to make us feel safe? And how are they going to know how to speak our love languages? Because I feel like a part of speaking our love languages outside of the 5 that we all know is like knowing our triggers and knowing our childhood wounds. And if you pretend that you don't have them, or if you don't speak them, then they're just going to get worse, and they're not going to heal. And that's another thing that I think that with dating, especially with you and I always being obsessed with growth, is like, well, how can I deal with this? How can I heal from this and not make it his, make it mine? How can I do it?
We become the martyrs.
But I notice that when I stay in that zone, but I also still voice that that's where I'm at, I remove the shame from it because I'm speaking it out loud, and I feel more accepted. But and if they leave, then there's someone that will accept it. I don't know, they just weren't for you. And that is a scary thing, but you might as well find out now that it's too much for him, or that he can't sit with you in the insecurity or the uncomfortable or the vulnerable moments.
Yeah. And being able to communicate that clearly, and so that you feel confident in the way that you were able to communicate it, is a whole skill on its own. But I think working towards that is all what we call self-mastery, being able to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So to sum it up, speak the trigger.
Speak it out loud in truth, in the core
and
truth.
Soberly.
Emotionally sober.
Non-threatening.
Yes. Do you have any advice on balancing your masculine and feminine energies? This question is coming from G_Dylan11 on Instagram. Advice on balancing your masculine and feminine energies.
Go listen to our Maddie Moon episode.
Or our Elimale episode.
And London Winters. And we have so many episodes about this, because it was something that we were really into for a while.
Still are. Yeah. We just integrated.
I think that, because I can usually see if someone's in their feminine or masculine, and I can usually see where most of their trauma is coming from, their feminine or their masculine. So I think also a really important thing is finding out where you hold wounds, because that's likely the part you're suppressing, or the part that you're letting overcome you. That's where the imbalance is coming from.
Yeah. And I think too, you don't have to go deeper on that, because go back and listen to those episodes Jade mentioned, and they've given us so many exercises, different practices to employ to balance out your energies, and they are powerful. So I hope you enjoy. Dawn_McGrudger on Instagram asks, how do you not worry about what others think or feel about you?
Oh, I always remember that everything that they're saying and seeing is through the filter of everything that they've gone through, and that whatever they're telling me, whatever someone's saying about someone, they're telling you about them and not as much about the person. So negative and positive comments online don't tend to affect me. When people make fun of my gap, it doesn't tend to affect me. When someone says I'm the most beautiful woman they've ever seen, it doesn't affect me, because that's
Filtered
just their
through their
filter.
shit.
That's what they're seeing through their experiences. And when someone is being super hateful too, it's like they're telling you about what they're feeling. It has nothing to do with you. And if anything that has helped me feel that more, it's A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and The Four Agreements, of course, Take Nothing Personal.
Yeah, Don Miguel Ruiz. Also, we interviewed his son, guys, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. He uses those core basics from that book in his other works and just in the way he speaks. That's a good one to listen to.
Just keep telling yourself it's not about you, and it's not always what it seems. Like those two
It's
things
hard to understand it's not about us when we're triggered, but it is so critical to understand that just hurt people, and that's what that's coming from. At a chugga, I don't know, a chugga 16, and also Pat_Kasky68 on Instagram both asked, what event impacted your life most, or what has been the most life-defining moment you've experienced, and how has it helped you grow as a person?
That's hard, because it could be that couple taking me off the streets, or it could be me walking away from that marriage, because that changed my life forever. Think about it. Like, we wouldn't be talking right now. I wouldn't
have having your children, or starting this podcast. I mean, it's so many moments.
I know. I mean, walking away from the situations that didn't serve me, walking away from that marriage, walking away from the past partnership, I'd say that those were most transformative, because they were what opened the door and made space for the most amazing things.
Clearing out, cleansing your life. Cool. At Dewey_Argyle asks, are you still abstinent?
No, it did last 8 months. And I think the lesson there was, because I was in an unhealthy situation, I thought that my sex drive was gone, because it felt gone. But once I rid myself of, all the unhealthy of that situation, and then spent some time alone, it replenished, and I realized how sensual I really was. But it also helped me to, in the first 3 months, I wasn't allowed to be intimate with myself either. And then in the last half, I allowed that, but it also helped me to get to know my body more, which was nice, because I really had my pleasure. That part had been neglected for so long. So that being able to come, back into my life was really powerful. And it was even some homework that I got in a ceremony, was to do that every day, because it really does make a difference when you're orgasming regularly. It's really good for you. Another thing though was that once I did start having sex again, I had to find that balance, because I started to get, Mercedes knows that, like, once I broke my abstinence, I bought all the sex books, and I felt like sex had to be electrifying, and like it has to be the best ever right now. And I had to find the balance with, like, chill. It's a process, you know, you don't have to do it all right now. So I did find the balance there, but it was 8 months is a really long time.
Yeah. Kudos to you on that. And it sounds like it's worthwhile though, if anyone's thinking of trying it because they feel like.
I think 6 months is
6 months is good.
That was my intention, was 6 months. And then I was like, all right,
world, I'm ready.
It just lasted 8.
Man, I don't know. I'll keep flirting with the idea, and like the husband keeps looking at me like, don't you fucking dare.
That's funny.
All right, at F_row6 on Instagram asks, threesome ? And I'm pretty sure he's asking if we'd be interested in a threesome with him, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and pretend that, because he heard that episode number 36 where we interview Kyle Kingsbury about his threesome with his wife, that this guy's asking if you've had a threesome, and if so, what was the experience like? If not, would you consider it?
I've never had a threesome. I did date a well-known celebrity in LA for a little while that I had a really deep connection with. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't continue, is because he kept wanting to have threesomes. And I don't know. I just don't have a desire to. I feel like I'm one of the only people on earth who hasn't, but I, for some reason, don't feel like I'm missing out. I do sometimes have an attraction for women, especially Ruby Rose. And so there are times where I'm like, if my partner was okay with it and he would let me do that and he could watch, but I don't want to have a threesome. I don't want to share my partner, but even that sounds selfish, because he would be sharing me with that woman, but he'd be able to watch, right? So it's kind of fun for him. I don't know. That would be something that, like, maybe that would be maybe a possibility, but I don't even know if that would be beneficial to the relationship. And if not, then I wouldn't want to do it. But yeah, I have no desire to have a threesome.
I've not had a threesome. and I have fantasy about a threesome, but with two dudes. And I would open it up to dream world right now, that if you'd like to show me in my dream if that's something I really want to do or not. That's the only way I'm willing to.
I don't want to
at this point. In your dream, it's like, okay, well, let's do this, but it's a dream. But like, you got to kind of know it's your dream.
Yeah.
You can manipulate it the way you want. Okay. Oh, Mike on Instagram asks, what kind of men or women are you attracted to?
Women, the most I've ever been attracted to someone is Ruby Rose. But there was this other playmate that I fell in love with in my 20s. And she looked like a playmate, but it was more that, like, you know, she was curvy and beautiful and blonde. But it was more that I felt such a soul connection with her. When I talked to her, I always felt like we were the only ones on the planet, but yet on another planet. And so it was a soul connection, but it didn't go anywhere. I didn't know if she felt the same. I didn't know if she liked girls. And so I never expressed it, but I did feel, I felt like I was falling for her. And then men, so it's not like a type. It's Ruby Rose is my type visually.
Yeah.
But that girl looked nothing like her. She was like, Ruby Rose is so skinny and she looks, you know, kind of boyish. You can tell she's a lesbian. This girl was like a playmate, didn't even know if she was one or not. Right. So I don't really have, it's more of a soul connection. And with men, people always say I have a type. Then you tell it then.
Well, if you're talking about looks, you have a type, but you used to have a type as far as personality because you were running an old pattern that I'm glad you're.
Yeah, I don't have that anymore.
Yeah. So now I'd like to.
Bye, boys.
Bye, boys. You like tallish, skinny, but then again, I've seen you date some short.
I only dated like one tall guy. Yeah.
Well, okay, like not tall, but for you, everybody's tall.
Yeah, that's true.
So taller than you, skinny, and more like white boy, blonde, blue eye type. Not necessarily blonde.
See, I don't know. So I would say someone who, when they smile, their eyes smile too. And someone, I like messy hair, but I feel like, because every time I put I don't know. I feel like whenever I post someone that I'm dating, they're like, well, you have a type. And so I'm like, well, what do you mean? But I feel like I like muscles. I like muscles. I don't need like Kyle Kingsbury muscles, but I like muscles. I like definition. I like to feel like it's like a man that, you know, is like gonna
protect you.
Yeah, I'm like a healthy masculine, but I like a big smile. I like someone who takes care of their teeth. I like someone who takes care of their body. I like someone who's super positive. And I guess if I had to guess, when people say you have a type, it's because they tend to be like a pretty boy with some tattoos, I think.
Yes.
And I like a defined jaw, but really looks still, I feel like it's a soul connection. Like if they make me feel seen, that's really sexy, you know?
For sure. Yeah, no, I actually have seen you. I guess that's because who you've actually ended up in longer term relationship with has been a certain look. But when we talk about like men who are attractive and for the reasons they're attracted to, a lot of the time it has nothing to do with, I mean, the guys aren't even attractive physically if you really wanted to look at it from that level, but because they like are so good at seeing someone clearly or being an expert in their field or confident in the work that they do or something like that, they become really attractive. We have that experience a lot on this show because we delve so deeply into things with people who are experts in a lot of things we're really interested in. So I think it's and we're always in ovulation, it seems, so easily influenced by these masculine wiles.
You know what I really love though is when you look in someone's eyes and you see like purity and innocence, even though like no one really has like innocence. It's like there's this like innocent like intention, you know? It's like a gentleness. Gentleness is, which is funny because I dated so many fighters, but they had like some of them, you know, they had like a gentle spirit still, you know? Yeah. So gentleness is like something that really melts my heart. And then just a desire to be a light to people. I mean, I can post my list of 18 things on our story or something.
Oh yeah, that would have been good. We could list out the 18 things that are on your list. That's actually, let's do it right now. We can cut it if we want. So you have a list, right? That I know you've made, and currently you're dating someone who meets I don't know, is it all the things on the list?
He says he doesn't have two. But yeah,
he graded himself, so I don't know if we can call it accurate, but it's a lot better than just one.
That's the good thing about him is that he is very transparent and very honest. But the lesson there was when I made that list last November, there was something in me, like a really like strong inner knowing that if I walked away from the unhealthy situation, that I would know that man by next fall. It was just like it was fall when I wrote it, but it was like, it was just this deep inner knowing, like, you'll know this man by next fall. And it was like, it almost gave me that urge to like get rid of the unhealthy, or else I was going to miss out on that. But
okay,
then,
so go ahead. You have more.
well, then when the man showed up, he said something that, like, I don't know, something that scared me. And I was like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I have this list and I'm being super particular about who I date. And instead of him being intimidated by it, like a lot of men I think would be, or like him thinking I'm a diva or high maintenance, he was like, oh, well, let me see it. Let's not waste any time. And I have a list too. I'll show you mine. And I was like, I was taken back. Like, I don't know many men that would be vulnerable like that.
Yeah.
And so he literally like wrote down what he felt about himself next to each thing. And I knew he didn't want to waste time either. So I felt he was honest. But what happened, my lesson there was, when it did show up fast, there was something in me that was trying to talk me out of it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel, and Mercedes was the one who brought it to my attention, I didn't feel worthy of the universe delivering what I asked for, especially so soon. And so I was trying to tell myself that it wasn't real. And Mercedes always helps me with my worthiness wound. But I also, it gave me that mindset of abundance. And then, yeah, that was a really big lesson there. Just that we are worthy of what we manifest.
Yeah, that's a good line right there. Just because we're manifesting it, it means we're worthy of it. Huh?
Yeah.
So what is
and then the last thing, another lesson there was that, like, when you're so used to trauma and things being like having so much angst around them, that when something comes along that feels right and easy, that it can almost seem boring to you. And
that's it. Yes.
That's not the case. It's just that you're so, like, I used to always think someone was about to be mad at me, or that like something was going to go wrong. And in this amount of time with this person, I haven't felt that once. And that can almost seem boring, but it's not. It's just
this, I feel,
my brain used to be addicted to stress.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. This ties to stress addiction, which is such an interesting topic. And it's so cool that you've been exploring it really on the podcast in real time as you're working through it. So, and that's a real thing. You know, if you're listening, we get addicted to these old patterns that aren't necessarily things that feel good. Being stressed all the time, being always worried that someone's going to leave you, or whatever it is for you.
We confuse that for chemistry and passion. Yeah. So true. And so there was something in me that was thinking, is this going to be enough? Are we going to get bored?
Right.
And it's just because I was used to the unhealthy.
Yes, I totally did that in my last relationship. So I feel you.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me the list though.
Okay. It's on my phone, so I'm going to have to turn this video off and restart it. Okay. So it's not unlocking. Okay, so what I'm available for is what I titled it. And there are 18 things. So number 1 is faith in God, quote unquote, that he leads me in my faith and lovingly challenges me. That's really important. Number 2, a strong desire to change the world for the better through how he loves people, sees people, and lives his life. Number 3, has a desire to see the world and is a patient and loving travel partner. That's huge, because you want to be able to travel with your partner.
Yeah.
And I've had some
There's doozies. Not always easy. It's not always easy.
Number 4, takes me blues dancing and loves the French kiss. People laugh when they read that, but first of all, blues dancing is the way to my heart. And I have not had many partners that would blues dance with me. It also means they don't have a stick up their butt, and they don't care what other people think, and they'll dance with a woman because they know it makes her happy. And that says a lot. And then the loves the French kiss. My last relationship, I can count on probably one hand how many times we French kissed. And I think that French kissing is more intimate than sex. I always relate it to Pretty Woman, how when she wouldn't have sex with her clients, I mean, she wouldn't French kiss them, but she would have sex with her clients. Number 5, hilarious. I love, laughing is so important.
Got to be hilarious. Yes.
Hilarious. Number 6, lives a healthy lifestyle through his diet and activities. I don't want someone who drinks regularly. I don't want someone who eats junk. I want to
substance abuses or sugar abuses or any of those things.
Number 7, inspires me to be more positive. Number 8 is empathetic to others, and his kindness brightens the day of all around him. Number 9, financially stable and responsible. Number 10, my children are thrilled to have him as a father figure. Number 11, he makes me feel safe. I deserve that after all I've been through and all the work I've done. I no longer want to live in fight or flight mode or be fearful in conflict. This means no belittling, name calling, breaking things. It also means that I know he is faithful and always has my best interests at heart. It means he makes me feel adored and respected. Number 12, he consistently desires to grow with me. I want to read books together. I want to have talks about how we're growing in our own lives, but I really want to use the relationship as a growth tool for each other. Number 13, he is emotionally and physically available. Number 14, he is a giver in bed and into tantra-like practices. At least try,
Yeah, just try to be experimental. Why not?
Yeah, I don't want ho-hum sex anymore. Number 15, serious handyman and creativity skills, because so many of my friends' husbands are handymen, and I just think that their life is so much easier and faster.
That's on my unanswered list.
Number 16, he cooks for us randomly. I don't need him to cook all the time, but just take some weight off of the woman. Number 17, he makes me feel pursued and is romantic. Like, he opens cars' doors. He buys flowers or cards from time to time. Doesn't have to be all the time, but just little surprises that, make you feel pursued. That he acts the way that he acted when he was trying to win you. Yeah. Number 18, he loves on me in the morning before checking his phone.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to put on a list, you would think, but that's my list. And he actually had a list too, and I only don't have one of them, which is that she is drug-free. But it's weird because I consider myself drug-free. I just do plant medicine, and I don't think of plant medicine as drugs. So that's the only thing I lack, but I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll see.
All right. We have a pick your poison from Nick on Facebook. You're going to start your video. Start the video again. On.
Yeah. Okay.
Clap. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have a pick your poison from Nick on Facebook, who asks, would you rather have skin that changes color based on your emotions, or tattoos appear all over your body depicting what you did yesterday?
The color of my moods. You can tell already. People can tell what mood I'm in by looking at me.
Well, you also could see the chakras and the auras and the colors already, so you feel like that's probably just comfortable for you at this point.
Yeah, I'll do that.
I don't know. You're like a big mood ring. You're just walking around and nobody have to ask what you're feeling. You're like, how are you? You're
so much easier.
What color do I look like right now? Would I be completely gray right now if I felt great? I don't know. I'm trying to think of tattoos depicting what I did yesterday. So you just have to you could wear clothes.
Yes, you could. Why didn't I think of that?
I mean, you could cover them up. Is it on your face? I don't know. I want to think about what that would look like. What did I do yesterday? And it's just you having sex with another person that's not your spouse on your forehead, and you're like, what, honey? I don't, what's wrong?
Yeah.
I'd like to think I don't do things that are so terrible I wouldn't care if they were tattooed on.
I just don't want tattoos all over my body.
What if I was waxing my vagina,
That's funny.
Or what are the other things? Just sitting in bed with my cat all day watching Netflix.
It could be anything. I want my privacy.
I kind of want to
know my mood. I want my privacy.
Sitting with my cat all day watching Netflix. That would be really great tattoo. Okay, so I don't know I just want the tattoo thing because I think it would be funny. Okay, so as you know, there's a few short questions we like to ask everyone who comes on our show. First off, if you could hug your younger self right now, what would you say?
That life is worth living. And that all of your prayers are going to be answered.
Okay. If you could have...
Well, I mean, some of our prayers aren't answered for the better,
Right.
But the life that I really wanted and that I had hoped for, that or something better is going to happen. But that life is worth living.
For sure. If you could have the whole world read one book, which would it be?
I always say Life's Operating Manual by Tom Shadyac, because I just feel like it's the whole world needs to read that damn book. But I am reading for the third time Getting the Love You Want. And I just think that if it is, I wish that I could memorize the entire book, because it would have changed so much. It tells you why you choose the partners that you choose, why you're attracted to what you're attracted to. And there's some imago exercises in it, which is helping you reveal your subconscious. I mean, it's a really, really powerful book, and really has so many amazing tools. And the first time I read it, I think it was 26. I read it again when I was 29, and now I'm reading it again at 34. And I honestly can't recommend a better book for people, because we all have triggers. We're all choosing someone based off of our childhood, all of us.
Not consciously. We all think we're doing these things consciously. It's all completely just subconscious patterns.
Yeah. So we all need to read this book.
Okay. On the list. Put it on the list, people. All right. If you could whisper one phrase to everyone on the planet, what would it be?
Well, I say it all the time, be a light, but the reason why is because it sounds so cliche, but we really don't know what other people are going through, and we really don't know what people are hurting over, and we don't know what's the last straw for them. And there's so much darkness in the world. Like, I mean, it can be consuming if we think about it too long, but if we can just look for the light workers and be the light workers, we can balance it out.
I like that. So if you're listening to this, you already know where to find us here on the Majic Hour, and of course at the Majic Hour, spelled Majic on Instagram. But where else can people find you out there online and such?
Everything is at the Jade Bryce. I didn't have really any social media before I started Bellator, and I remember Mercedes was like, you got to get Twitter. And this is how long ago it was. She was like, Twitter was the only thing. She was like, yeah, you got to get Twitter. And so I tried Jade Bryce, and it was some like 15-year-old English girl. And I don't know, like, I feel like some of the fighters or like some models that were on there had the in front of their name. So I just did that. And then I just felt like I had to carry it on to everything else. So I don't really like saying it. It's the Jade Bryce. I don't really like saying it, but I did it on the spur of the moment when I needed to get Twitter, and now I'm stuck with it.
Well, now it's you. It works. Cool. So find her there, people. And of course, we got to break into our magic tricks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What do you got for us today, Jade? What kind of magic besides your entire interview can you?
So this doesn't sound like a magic trick because it sounds so normal and just advice-like, but nothing has changed my life more than the access of knowledge that like nothing has changed my life more than like being able to just pick up a book on what I need and like devouring it. So if I'm struggling with something and I look up that book online and I just find the one that has the best reviews and the most, life transforming seeming reviews, and then I get that one, and and it almost sounds like I'm distracting myself from the issue that I'm struggling with, but it's actually a way of like diving into it, and I just don't put the book down until I feel better, until I feel like I've come a little bit closer to where I need to be on the subject. If I'm going through a breakup, I find some book about breakups. If I am dating the same person over and over, I get Getting the Love You Want. If I feel like I've got a conflict in my mind with Fear and Truth nonstop, I get Tom's book, Life's Operating Manual. It's like if you're taking things personal, you can get A New Earth, or struggling with motivation, there's the Motivation Manifesto. It's like anything you're going through, there's a book on it. And I feel like we just kind of dismiss, like we take them for granted because books have always been around, and we just, they're everywhere. And it's like, I think we sometimes forget like how transformative they can be. There is a book on anything.
I agree.
Now there's audiobooks too. It makes it even easier for us.
And podcasts.
Yeah.
And YouTube. I mean, there's so many. That's the beauty of living in this age, and why I would not want to live in any other era, because it's accessible knowledge.
It's power. And books have really, 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 really changed my life, because I feel like I become friends with the writer almost. Like there's been times where I was struggling with depression so bad, and I got A Million Miles in 1,000 Years by Donald Miller. And I felt like I went on his journey with him. Or Eat, Pray, Love, as cliche as that sounds for women. Going through my divorce, I read Eat, Pray, Love. And it was like, you go through the journey with them and they become your friends. And it's almost like you miss them when the book's done, So
and I'd maybe just
find a book you need.
I'd offer for anyone who feels like they hate reading, that I used to think I hated reading. I used to think like reading's not for me. It's so boring. I don't want to do this. When I was in school, it would be the least attractive thing for me to do. It's like, I don't want to spend my time doing that. And later in life, I hit some really deep, rock bottoms for my psyche, that I had no other choice but to figure out how the hell I was going to heal myself. And so I went to look for the knowledge that would get me there. And a lot of that came through books, and being that desperate for help caused me to pick up a book and realize that, holy shit, all the information we need in order to heal ourselves is out there at our disposal. It's just a matter of typing in a keyword, and literally thousands of options will pop up, and it's just starting somewhere and just looking into it, and it will. And then you'll read a book, and it'll talk about some other book in that book, or it'll talk about some other place that you can find more information on a subject you might be interested in. Or like when you listen to our podcast, you probably end up with a list of books by the end of one episode. So very quickly, just by trying something that might spark your interest or you feel called to, will get you down a whole line of other things more refined for exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah. So to simply put the magic trick, find a book that is just related to the topic that you need to work on in your life.
Yeah, seek the knowledge. It's right there for you. I like
the
that.
Knowledge. Yeah.
I'm right there with you. That's definitely one of the most powerful things that I ever did in my life, was start reading. And now I read like maybe too much. Now it might be a part of an addiction. You know what I mean?
Kind of.
It's a whole nother thing, but I'm okay with that addiction right now.
Yeah.
All right. So my trick today comes from our guest of honor, Jade, you. So as a young child, I feel like I hardened fairly early on because of some of the things I'd experienced. And I even remember that I didn't really cry. I literally don't remember crying for any of my teenage years. And later, when I met you, Jade, you were just like overflowing with vulnerability and empathy, and it actually triggered me to step into my big sister role, which I've talked to you about, and kind of be like protective of you in that sense. But as time has passed, I've gotten to see how you wield those traits as strengths instead of weaknesses, and I've learned so much from you. So I think you learned or understood long before I did that hurt people, and that there's no such thing as evil. It's just pain expressing itself through someone's reactions. And I actually have a story that applies here. So I think we may have talked about this on the podcast before, but I'm going to go into it again because it's worthwhile. When we were at Bellator, we would do the intros of the show where we would stand in the crowd at the fighter walkout area, and we'd be in our little booty shorts and halter tops, and the crowd would be around us. We'd be cheering for the opening shot. And during one of these times, you and I were standing there, and as we finished that shot, the cameraman, walked away, and we went to go walk to our seats. A woman behind us yelled, "You got cellulite, bitch!"
Yeah.
And it was kind of, the few people that were standing around there heard, and we heard her say that, and we were kind of just like, oh, that was rude, and walked to our seats and a little bothered by it. But, this woman was like a middle-aged, plump woman, I guess I'll say, with a few other women that were similarly aged and shaped. And so we went back to our seats, and we were talking about it, it bothered us. And Jade, you were still considering how you were going to react to this situation because it was hurtful. And so you decided, and you told me, I'm going to go talk to that woman. And I was like, wow, okay, that's ballsy. Okay, be you. And so you grabbed a security guard and you went to confront her, just the security guard as safety, just in case anything happened there. And so you went up to her and you said, that I heard what you said about me and about my coworker, and that was really hurtful. And as women, we should support each other. And you asked her, are you hurting? Is there a reason that you would say something like that? And she started crying, this woman, and she apologized to you. And she said her husband often calls her fat and says mean things to her. And so you went to give her a hug, and she kind of just stood stiff. I'm sure there was a lot to digest in that for her. And I was in like, holy shit, she just changed the game for me in that moment. I was like, what just happened? So now I can say, Jade, you taught me how to turn kindness and empathy into a tool of mass deconstruction by finding a non-violent way to communicate with someone in pain, trying to trigger you. It was like in that moment, I was literally witnessing magic. And I'm currently reading one of your favorite books, speaking of all the books that we love, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, if you guys want to put that on your list too, which is largely about how to use compassion, empathy, and kindness in order to deconstruct a heated situation in the moment, so that your reaction is helpful rather than hurtful. So that's my magic trick for you guys today. Seek out some tools to become a better communicator and learn how to turn kindness and empathy into a tool of mass deconstruction.
I like that.
Yeah.
You articulate it so well.
Thanks, Jade. All right, that's it. This was a long one, guys. Thanks for sticking with us. And I'm sure now you are experts on Jade Bryce, as am I. So we love you guys. And fam, I also wanted to, before we sign off, I just wanted to mention that if you're liking what you hear on the show, the best way to show us love and to help us get other important guests onto the show is to rate the show 5 stars right there in your podcast app, whatever app you're listening in. We'll give you that opportunity. And if you could kindly write us a review, that is how authors and experts and gurus decide if coming on the show is worth their time. So that would help us so much in growing the show. So if you guys like what you're listening to, then please do us that favor.
Yeah, that effort from you, Magic Mobbers, would really do so much to help us along. I said that's how I choose my books. So it is how people choose their podcasts. So thank you guys for spending some time with us today and for taking this journey with us. If this episode held some magic for you, please also share it with your friends and family. And don't forget to join us on our Instagram page at The Magic Hour. We appreciate all your feedback and want to know what's lighting you up. And next week, we'll be interviewing Mercedes.
Yes.
Stay tuned.
Why am I kind of nervous for that?
I don't know. I was nervous for this.
You know me too well. She can read my auras and my intimate thoughts in this moment. Funny. So go listen to some of our past episodes.
A year.
I know.
There is a year worth of episodes.
There's a whole year worth of episodes, and they're pretty legit. I think you'll find some value in them. So we'll meet you there. Till then.
Be a light.